Order of Lowell City Council regular meeting Tuesday, March 19th at 7:04. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett, Councilor Harris. Councilor Harris.
I'm not
Yeah.
off tonight.
Councilor Stratus.
President.
Councilor Weathers. Here. Councilor Murray. Here.
All in attendance. You stand.
Rough start, boy. Really good on that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the agenda before us. We have something for other business, I see, that you want to add on?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add under other business,
Okay.
presentation by Tanya Marisi, Parks and Recreation Committee member. Paul Fisher Park Swing Set Donation Program.
All right, we can do that. Any other changes? Okay, next up is the consent agenda. We have a regular meeting February 20th, special meeting February 29th, work session 29th, regular meeting March 5th, check register February, financial reports for January and February. Anything anybody want to take it out and discuss or look at? Okay.
Move approval.
Yeah, second. Okay. We have a motion by Marie, second by Tim, to accept the consent agenda as it is. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have room for public comments at this point. If the public wants to speak. Okay. Okay, next up is the moving forward to page 137, city administrator's report.
Good evening, everybody. Here's a summary of activities since February 20. I have been focusing on completing the fiscal 24-25 budget. I'm a few weeks behind. I don't yet have a timeline on scheduling the first budget committee meeting. I should know in the next few weeks how things are progressing. And at that time, I will contact everybody about scheduling that first meeting.
Where are we with budget committee members?
We are
We're too short.
too short.
Oh, we have 8. Oh,
Oops.
the 3,
Same
5
numbers.
plus 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Bill George, Petrie, and
Lisa B. Wilson.
okay.
Actually, we have another one, Joshua Ants.
Yeah.
So we're just one short.
Okay.
And if anybody's interested, send them my way.
Good to hear.
On the covered bridge discussion in February, Max and I met with Lane County Public Works to discuss a new intergovernmental agreement regarding the covered bridge. They would like for us to complete an inspection first. They referred us to different companies that do inspections. The intention would be to use a part of our fund balance that has been accumulated over the years from tourism tax revenues that we received from Lane County. I have decided to postpone this until after the budget process, and we've communicated that to Lane County.
What does the inspection entail and what's the purpose?
The purpose is to identify capital improvements needs. As far as what it entails, Max, could you address that a little bit more? Are you more familiar with that than I am?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the bridge inspection goes everything from structural, obviously things we can't do, all the way to, you know, minor things, not that we have any out there, but like switches and everything. And it just has a baseline for us to move forward. It hasn't been done in a while. Our agreement, I think, said bridge inspections every 3 years, I think, upon renewal of contracts. But this would be, done outside, so like they would inspect the timbers, so pretty much everything from where the blacktop starts to the end of it. One, make sure it's structural safety, whatever else they do, they test the actual timbers somehow and the roof and everything that, so. Hopefully that answers the question. It's not anything other than just to make sure it's still gonna last and be safe for people to be out there.
Wait,
Hey, Max, has this been a thing the city has been responsible for securing in the past?
That is one of the discussions that Jeremy and I had. I believe in the past, the most recent inspection that I have was actually performed by the county. This was something that came up during our discussion, during Jeremy and I's discussion with Lane County. And we agreed that, before we entered into an IGA, it'd be nice to know where we're at with the current condition of the bridge. In respect to not only safety, but like the roof, painting the outside, some of the timbers that maybe move like when you walk on them and stuff. So to answer your question, Jimmy, as far as I know, the city has not done an inspection since I've been here. It has been done by the county. Or the county has called somebody, not performed by them. It's done by a third-party contractor.
I only ask because it does seem a little odd for us to secure an inspection on another entity's asset.
Yeah, there'll be more discussion about that. But for the short term, like Jeremy said, we're just going to put it on pause for a little bit and get through this budget cycle and then get back on the meeting with them. For now, the door will remain closed. The door is still having issues, so it'll remain closed until we can get that inspection.
any idea how much the inspection is, price wise?
I can give you rough numbers of what it costed last time.
That's more than adequate.
They're about $10,000. That was 8 years ago.
Okay.
So who knows what they are now?
We don't have that much money in the hotel fund cover inspection and repairs. I know it said in here that the county would see if they could help us on it, but and I hate seeing the thing closed during the summer time whenever people want to go in there and see it, but we really I don't see an option, but and even if we get the inspection done, then you go with everybody else wanting to get work done, so I don't know that it may be a delay in even getting the work done and painted and everything. That
I don't know
that's
why
sad.
we would pay for the inspection. I don't understand that. Not at all. It's not our residents.
Sounds like a contract renegotiation before we're at the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, and we can have,
Looking
guys,
forward.
we can have more discussion on that moving forward. Don, I'm not saying that the gate's not going to be open at all, even if it's pending that inspection. But I agree with Jeremy. I do not think we should enter another IGA, continue off the expired one we have, like we have been, until the bridge inspection has been at least, completed, and then regardless of who pays for it. But any major deficiencies identified, because that's some of the things that we can point out in the next IGA moving forward. So I did respond back to them and told them that we don't have the time right now to focus on that, and schedule the inspections, open and close it and everything, just because of the time of year. And they did respond back to one of their workers and see if they can start making the phone calls. So that's where we're at currently.
Thank you.
All right, following your February 29th special meeting, I signed a work order that you approved with the automation group, and they have started the PLC SCADA upgrade project. Later in February, Public Works City Engineer and I met with numerous officials with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The discussion centered around their permitting processes for the Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant. They informed us that cultural resources studies, wetland delineation, environmental review, and real estate review would likely be required. Following that meeting, I asked our USDA representative if the grant would cover those costs, and she responded yes. It's unlikely that we'll have the retrofits completed prior to this year's drawdown, but at least we will have started the process along those lines, and our deadline to apply is June 1st. I met with the Lane County Clerk last week about relocating the ballot box to the new city hall. Development activities, there were 2 planning commission meetings. The first was the land use application, commonly referred to as the Dollar General application, which they voted to recommend denial. The applicant later withdrew, so the planning commission's denial stands. The planning commission approved 2 variance requests for the property that the city sold off of Highland Lane. The first was to allow the applicants to take access off of Highland Lane as opposed to alleyway. The other was to reduce facade transparency. Their site plan application is complete. That's the next step in the process. There's also a potential wetland on the property where they want to build the parking lot. So I've started the review process with the Division of Department of State Lands on that. I've also had several conversations with the Lowell School District about their land use application for the weight room project. Moving on to the financial summary for February. I wanted to call to your attention that investment revenue is at 647% of budget. At the budget committee meeting last year, there was a discussion about being more proactive in investing cash. And we have been doing that. We've kept the balance in our bank account low, shifted that to the investment pool, and have been more proactive in managing our cash flow to generate investment revenue. Most of those investment earnings are included in the system development charge funds because those have the highest cash balances. Property tax collections are 104% of budget. For the water and sewer fund, charges for services are ahead of projections. I had a discussion with Max on that today, and we believe that one of the things that's driving that is we have had a higher than expected usage within the tier 2. So everybody who's over 5,000 gallons, the sales in that tier have exceeded our expectations. And you may recall from last year, when we restructured the rates, tier 2 was doubled compared to tier 1 with the intention to encourage conservation. But
So it's price more than volume, then it's not a volume.
it's volume 2.
Is
It's
it?
volume 2. Consumers don't appear to have tapered down on consumption as a result of the price increase.
But as winter goes, it has, I mean, is it higher than last winter, or did you even have a chance to look? Volume wise,
That may be a good topic for Max when he gives his report.
okay,
I just know that in the summer months, for this fiscal year, production was unprecedented and unprecedented levels. That's part of what's driving that. Total revenues across all funds are on track. Across all funds, expenditures are at 52% of budget. That excludes transfers out and certain capital improvements that we know we're not going to do this year. I have key accounts that are over budget in the general fund and the table is below. A couple other notes that I didn't put in here. Santa hasn't been giving us our franchise fee since July. I brought that to their attention, and they will be sending us a check for the amounts that they should have been sending. That's going to total $7,000. We budgeted $6,000, so we're ahead of projections on that. Also, I want to call your attention to any of your projections, which I've been working on. I'm projecting that the general fund will have a deficit of $140,681. And I want to compare that to my budget message. In my budget message, I stated that with the removal of the sale of surplus properties, there will be a general fund deficit of $163,537. That deficit was the result of some one-time expenditures that were in the budget that we're not going to do spend this year, but we've had other one-time expenses that we have incurred that were unexpected. We also had a higher beginning general fund balance than what I had in this budget. In my budget, I had a $70,000 beginning balance. It was actually 200 something. So what that means is I'm projecting a general fund ending balance of $104,000 as of June 30, if trends continue. I believe this emphasizes the importance of us selling those surplus properties, the old city hall and the park, and trying to sell that in a way that we come out ahead. I think this also calls to mind what I described in my budget message as long-term structural issues with the general fund, and that will be a theme that occurs as we go through the next budget process. So I just wanted to call that to your attention. What questions do you have for me?
Not a question. I'm really happy about that investment income. That's a real amount of money for a budget our size. So I'm glad that you were able to realize that. But it did involve a lot of extra work or attention on your part.
No, not at all. Just got to pay a little bit more attention to cash flow with the bank account.
And it helped that interest rates rose from
Yes.
our projection.
I think you pushed for it, so thanks.
It's an easy grab, low hanging fruit. I did notice in the audit report, that was a question I was gonna ask this guy, but I talked so long I didn't want to do it, but there is some provision that I didn't see in anybody else's audit that mid-range is covered, but
It is, yeah.
yeah, which I've never seen in an audit before, and it wasn't in the school districts or the charter schools audit, so I still do want to follow up on that, but this is a better deal anyway, because it's cash to us.
So let me just show the rest of the council real quick what you're talking about.
Yeah, oh, no,
Okay. I'll email it to you.
it's an accounting geek.
It's important though. It has to do with, there was some conversation last year about FDIC insured, what happens if the banks crash. That note in the audit report talks about that. The summary is that there's a state program that guarantees certain banks and certain investments. So I can send it to you if you're interested.
I'm glad you two are here.
No kidding.
And you're welcome for me not bringing it up and that kind of stuff.
Anything else for Jeremy? Okay, Public Works.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Public Works report for the last month. Streets and Parks, Monday, the 4th, staff met with the roofing contractor to investigate a roof leak on the stage in Rolling Rock Park. Upon further inspection, the issue is with the metal roofing transition cap, where it kind of tapers down in 2 angles like that, which is allowing the water to go under like the cap bridge. So it's coming around the outside and then leaking down on the very end. There did not appear to be any structural damage, just water draining through. We're waiting for a quote to get this. Those are custom made slats for that roof. So as soon as we get that, I'm sure we bring it to council for approval. And then once that issue is fixed, we'll have somebody separate look at the actual structure just to make sure that there is no issues that we can't see. There's no mold or anything, so.
If you fix the issue, is that gonna require removing what you just put on to do the inspection?
No, there's a full crawl space in that big vaulted. Yeah, you can't get to the very, very, very edge by the gutter, but no, you can. And the roofing guy went in there just to make sure there was nothing crazy, but he told us, we're not structural guys, but he kind of showed us the path of the water so that when we do have somebody come out, we can show that to them. So we marked it with chalk. So water treatment plant, the operations are slowly stabilizing. Today was much better than last week, but they're still changing slightly day to day, depending on, probably snow melt up above us with this nicer weather, resulting in staff continually performing staff jar tests. This is part of water treatment plant, and chemical adjustments just to maintain safe drinking water. So We're still not back to our normal wintertime stuff, and we're getting ready to shift into summer anyways, so we're just gonna keep moving forward as we can. As Jeremy stated earlier, TAG is working on the early stages of the PLC and SCADA upgrades. This includes the fabricating of the custom electrical cabinets and some data collection. They've been on site 3 times last week, not only for photos, but just to make sure they're ordering the proper equipment, right sizes, and then very early on, staff input on some minor things. So I think once we get the ball rolling on this, it'll be a pretty quick project, so. Wastewater treatment plant, nothing new at this time. Does anybody have questions? And then one thing I didn't put on here, as you guys may already be aware, yesterday and next Monday is 2 of our staff members' 5-year anniversaries. So I didn't imagine that happening 5 years ago today. So it struck me and had a quick conversation with Jeremy. So it makes me feel pretty proud to know that they stick around. And also, one other thing that's kind of a milestone for us is all public works staff actually live in Lowell now. So Hunter was the only one, and he just recently secured a home here. So very proud of him for that. So any questions? I was going to answer a question for Maureen.
Yeah. Go ahead, Marie.
I got a different one. Cause I'm doing some work in the front yard and I didn't want to pester your staff, so I thought, oh, I'll call for a locate, but then I have a vague recollection that those all come to you anyway.
Yeah, yep.
That's what I thought.
But it's a free service, so yeah, just do the 811. And you can always call me too. We can't mark anything other than water and sewer, but so it's best if you just call the 811.
That's all I care about.
Yeah. So yeah, they call 811. It gives us 2 days before we can put the marks down. So not an issue at all, Maureen.
Okay, well, I was trying.
We'll make it 100. Those were 2 good hires, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
Right off-
sure.
Right off the start, you know.
Yep,
and they
for sure.
did it all the way through. Yeah. Good people. Okay, anything else for Max? Thank you, Max.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask if the council anticipates any other questions from Max tonight.
I don't think so.
Okay, in that case, Max, you have a good night. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you. Is page 140, whole business,
wait,
second reading of the,
library.
I didn't see anything in there. Is she online?
No, but I had a question.
Oh, did you have library? Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I had emailed Peggy a while back, but I didn't see a response. Somebody asked me how you get a library card, and so I looked on, I thought, surely there's some information in the FAQs, and there isn't anything about who's served and how you get a library card. And I think it was in our operating blah, 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 but I wasn't gonna shoot anybody there to figure it out, and I thought I should know. This is how I learn, is when people ask me questions. And so, and I thought maybe that might be something that could be put in the newsletter as well. So how do you get a library card except for walking in the door, or do you have to walk in the door?
Well, you have to welcome people.
Okay,
Um,
and what areas do we serve
there's no residency limitation
at all?
at all.
Okay, and there's no cost to the library
There's
card.
no cost.
Told them that, okay. Okay, well, anyway. Might put that in that FAQ.
That's a great idea.
Huh? Oh,
It's a good catch.
I think when it first opened, everybody was just said, you know, come on in, you can get a card. So it was more by verbal, like you say, it could have been in the general instructions in there too, when they built up their manual, but like I say, mainly it was just word of mouth that come on by and get your card.
I didn't want to overpromise,
Yeah.
say something stupid, so, you know.
I have a question, Don.
What's that?
I know she had been interviewing, so I'm curious if there's any update on the intern position.
There are some promising candidates. I want to meet with Peggy next week and we should be able to make an offer.
That's great.
And the thing about this job is it can all be done at home. They upload the stuff. And in the metadata interim, they plug in all that data so people can search for it. So they can all be done at home.
Which I think was a change, so that's good.
Anything else? Okay, going on to old business. We have a second reading. We have a second reading by title only.
And Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to just jump in here and explain something. Prior to this meeting, I found two other areas in our municipal code that had to do with recreational vehicle camping. And those areas conflicted with this ordinance. So in the ordinance that's before you tonight, if you look at the areas that are in red and underline it. Actually, if you look, everything that's underlined is new to this ordinance. And then on section 6 and section 7, I underlined what would be added to the land development code to make that compatible with this. So our charter requires any changes prior to the second reading to be read aloud.
Okay.
And if it's okay with the council, I'd like to go ahead and do that.
Go ahead.
I'll
Do you
start.
need a motion for the amended reading or anything like that, or you just kind of go?
No, I'll just read the differences.
Okay, just need to read it in, okay,
I'll start by reading the title.
okay.
Does anybody object to reading my title? Okay, thank you for that. If Lowell, Oregon, ordinance 312, an ordinance to comply with HB 3115 by repealing ordinance 240, adopting time, place, and manner regulations for camping, amending regulations regarding hauled wastewater discharging to accommodate RV camping on residential property, repealing the offense of vagrancy from Title V of the Lowell Revised Code, and updating certain sections of the Lowell Development Code. Now moving on to the added sections. Section 6, section 9.41B4C of the Lowell Land Development Code is rewritten to read as follows. Boats, trailers, detached campers, motorized dwellings, and similar recreational equipment may be stored, but not used for human habitation, except where explicitly allowed as described elsewhere in the Lowell Revised Code. I skipped over section 5. Section 5, subsection G of section 9.103 of the Lowell Land Development Code is deleted. Section 7, section 9.412B6C of the Lowell Land Development Code is rewritten to read as follows. Boats, trailers, detached campers, motorized dwellings, and similar recreational equipment may be stored, but not used for human habitation, except where explicitly allowed as described elsewhere in the Lowell Revised Code. With that, Mr. Mayor, the title has been read and the changes have been read.
So when we have a motion, we don't need as amended the way you wrote it up here correctly. Correct?
Correct.
We have any questions about this before we at this point? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the city council adopt ordinance 312.
Second. Jamie, second by Kim. Discussion further? All those in favor of ordinance 312? An ordinance to comply with H Bill 3115 by repealing ordinance 220. Okay. Do I need to read all that or not?
I don't believe that's necessary.
Okay, I said it now. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And I believe down at the bottom it says this was done as an emergency measure, compliance with the state, so that goes into effect today or tomorrow,
Right now,
right now.
as soon as you sign the paper.
Sounds good. Okay, new business, page 150. Health and safety code enforcement. I believe, you want to introduce this or open it up?
Yeah, gosh, where to start? I guess it came up most recently when I did the ride along with Oak Ridge. And I'm talking with, the officer Neil. But then I started thinking back, I thought we talked when we did our. I believe it was when we did our priorities thing. I think that was where we met in the library conference room. And you had the stack of letters because you had done the code enforcement in the area. And I thought at that time that we had said some kind of, that we were gonna do top 10 or something, but I could be wrong on that. And then the next recollection I have is when Oak Ridge was here. And again, I'm fuzzy on this, and that's why I'm waited to bring it here, was I thought then we talked again about having Oak Ridge be involved to follow up on some stuff. So when I was riding along with Neil, he offered to do the follow-up. You know, because Jeremy's time's limited, and I thought that'd be great, you know, because he's riding around. I'd rather have him be, you know, he's in uniform, he's trained and everything, and he can go up to a door without, you know, don't care to send Jeremy to, you know, necessarily unfriendly places and stuff. So I thought, you know, that'd be great. But then then Jeremy had wanted to meet with each of us about budget, so I thought I'll sit on it until I have time there, again, trying to be respectful of his time. So I'm not speaking out of turn here for Jeremy. I was surprised that we hadn't sent anything out on any of the egregious code enforcement things. And then he explained that was back when he did it at first. I think it was in July, and it was the blackberries because it was a fire hazard, and certainly that was important. But from riding around in this property across the street, I can't in good conscience sit here and approve things about development standards that have to do with the amount of glass that we're gonna have and nail people, and then yet do nothing about garbage in a yard where there's children and neighbors. And I think that, like, water and sewer are two of our highest priority things. I think the health and safety of our residential areas, when they're not in compliance with our code, is equally important. I'm not worried about stepping on somebody or leaning on somebody for, you know, gee whiz, you parked over and blocked this or that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, there's a few, not very many. There are a few properties that are egregious, that are just unacceptable, and that's the worst one. And so Jeremy gracefully offered to jump in the car. We did. I looked up codes while he was writing them down, and I believe then you did send a letter. I'm not sure how far we're gonna get. I phoned one of the residents who isn't the property owner. So I think there's an issue there between who owns the property and who lives there. I think that has to do with the follow-up, but I know that everybody's busy with everything, but I think that we need to place this particular property and about 2 or 3 behind it at a higher priority for this city. If I was living next door to there, I'd be in this office, in your office, every stinking day. Because it is unacceptable, and it's only gonna get worse. There's already rats, it's only gonna get worse. I did talk to the resident, I know her, I worked with one resident, worked with her before, and I wanted to assure her that she's not being picked on. We're after the problem, not the people, and offered assistance if that's what's, what's needed. Again, I'm not sure how this is gonna go. It was just a nice letter at this point, not an abatement type thing. But I think that we need to step it up. I think it's gonna take that. And your letter was nice in terms of come in and talk to me and see how to get, well, there you go. There's another couple hours of your life that you'll never get back. It's pretty clear. Get the garbage out of your yard. You don't have to negotiate something like that, so it's pretty clear. So I want to bring it to the council. If you don't think it's important, I'm one vote. I can live with that. But I guess I'm upset because I thought we had a process in place, and so that it wasn't. And I don't want to be a micromanager, I'm not gonna do that, but I'm disappointed in myself for not having followed up, I guess, to do that. We had a resident in here that came and did a complaint not long ago. We didn't say anything, I assumed my fault, I assumed it was in a queue, and I feel badly, that we have this situation that's unacceptable. So I'm either asking for your support or not.
I think we all agree that we want to have as nice a looking town, and in compliance with codes are the minimum standards, that we allow, and when someone drops below the minimum, it deserves to be reckoned with. But I'm not as okay. He sent the letter out. What happens next after the letter? Is there a citation then, or is that the citation, or
I'm trying to
kind of a timetable of how soon? Like if you send a letter out, how soon could it well be remedied, and how long could it possibly take?
The letter reads, our purpose in writing to you is a request, in addition to some other stuff, request that you contact the city within 10 days of receiving this letter. We would like to schedule a meeting with you to work with you on developing a timeline for addressing these issues. And then if you fail to contact us within that time frame.
If they don't show, I don't want to talk about them, but if, say it was me, and I had like 3 or 4 violations, somebody, wrote it up as a complaint, and you send me the letter, and I don't change anything, then what happens?
Okay, I'd like to just to speak generally here.
Okay, that's exactly what I want.
Because I don't want to talk about particular people,
No.
especially if I haven't had a chance to talk about them.
Okay.
Because I
You
believe
talk about me.
I believe they're entitled to fairness and due process.
I
In
agree.
addition, when it comes to nuisance complaints, if I make a determination that somebody has violated that, then they have an appeal right to the council. So I don't want to prejudice this body on any particular issue. Because again, I believe people are entitled to due process. So generally speaking, if there's a severe violation, then I send an informal notice. Because I want to try a soft approach where I realize there are a lot of issues at play, and perhaps somebody may not have all the resources to take care of it all at once. I want to try to have a conversation with that person, like I do for somebody who can't pay their utility bill. They might owe $500, I know they're behind, I know they're struggling, let's at least sit down together and come up with a plan and a timeline to get everything taken care of. And like with a payment plan, if they don't abide by their end of the agreement, then we go to the next step. Or if somebody doesn't contact me, whenever I've extended my hand to try to work with it, that next step is to send a formal abatement notice informing them that they are in violation. If they don't fix it within 14 days, I believe it is, then they can be fined every day that it occurs. Or the city can initiate abatement proceedings. The way that works is you would have a public hearing, a meeting, the attorney would get involved. You draft a resolution, approve it. That then gives us the authority to go on somebody's property, clean it up, and file on the property, or to sue them. So that would be the next step in the process, formal abatement. And all of this is per our city code. You have to send a first class letter. If it comes back unreturned, then you have to post it on their property. You have to give them the 14 days. If it's not fixed up by then you can start issuing a ticket every day.
I need to say something here first, so I get that, I get process. What's not in the process is acting the first time. There's nothing that says when he's supposed to do that the first time. Maybe there is on utility bills when they get $1,000 in arrears, maybe there is, I don't think that there is, maybe there is, didn't see it. So I understand from then on, I get the process. We need something that starts the process. This is my opinion.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a couple things I want to say. First is, we put this code enforcement on as the 13th in our list of priorities for Jeremy for this year. But I do think this goal list is a living document. And I think it takes a lot of courage to come forward and say that we're not doing a good job, because I agree with you, and I'm glad you brought it up. But I think we intentionally delegate a lot of authority to Jeremy, and I do think he said what the process was, that he tries his best to make a judgment call on when something is a security risk or a safety risk. And I think that's what happened here. Maybe it could have happened quicker, but I do think Jeremy said it. And I think the reverse, if we start trying to really get fine detailed on when this will trigger an action from Jeremy, that's going to make it really hard for him. So I'm just worried about that. But to step back, just to make sure I understand what we talked about back then, and this is my question for you, Jeremy, because when we had Oak Ridge Police here, we talked about this. I thought the process was, if someone just complains, it's not an actual code enforcement issue. That's just a complaint. Whether it's here or in Facebook, it's this complaint. They actually have to come fill out the form. So my question is, how often are those forms getting filled out? Are people coming in and actually using the code enforcement complaint process?
Sure, we've had, I have a log of everything. It's not, we don't get a lot of complaint forms. Most of the recent ones that we've had are dogs running loose, but we have had a recent amount of complaints around a certain issue.
But are you asking, does a complaint then start the process? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, those are my next question. So are you following up on those and making that appropriate judgment call? So
for a lot of them, yes. And I believe what you're getting at and what the Oak Ridge discussion had about is the process proactive versus complaint driven? And our process is mostly complaint driven.
Okay, but I filed a complaint for garbage on a property near my home that never got followed up on. 180 bags of garbage. We finally got a relative in another city to come down exclusive of the city. I relied on a different method, nothing underhanded. Again, another concerned neighbor who had property that was affected by rats and removed 180 bags of garbage from that property.
So I guess what I'm hearing you ask, Maureen, is about moving these things up on the list.
What does it take and how reasonably soon we can expect? I'm talking about garbage. I'm talking about garbage with rats.
And rats are a big problem. And that as much as anything affects all the neighbors because the rats start, they're a problem by themselves, but if you have things on your property, then, we have to think about the fact that it's not just that property. It's everybody around. And that is a big health problem, a nuisance. So,
I mean, if the rule is 3 complaints, then just tell me that's what the rule is, and I'll follow it. It won't be me doing 3 complaints, I'm not gonna do that kind of stuff, but if that's what it takes in order for us to act, then that's what I need to communicate to people so that they can choose to or not.
I think we've talked about it being a health and safety, and whether it takes 3 or 1, if it's either one of those, if it's a health issue, like you say with rats, it shouldn't take 3 rat notices
well, I guess in my mind, we identify those really, really serious ones and get them focused on right away.
How do we do that?
Thank you, Maureen. It took me a while to get to where you're getting to. So
So I guess I thought if it's observed, do we have to wait for complaint? Necessarily?
So I manage a service point with a ticketing system, and we have a minimum turnaround time to at least get a response in. So it took me a while to get there, but I got what you're saying. So I do agree that I know everyone is overwhelmed and overworked, but there has to be some amount of if this, then to this system.
Because I understand code enforcement, number 13, fine. That's just like Jeremy's thing is financial, health, budget and stuff. Or even in public works, that operating the sewer plant's fine, but when you've got a geyser because somebody cuts through a line, you're on it. I'm calling this an emergency. That's what I'm requesting. Because to me, it is. It's been a long emergency. And I'm losing faith in our livability here. Because it's not just a noisy car next door or somebody playing music past 10.
I guess that's why emergency, we look at the ones that truly are that and we go forward. We don't leave it on number 13.
Yeah, I'm not trying to bump code enforcement proper up to
No.
number 1. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Jeremy, with the amount of complaints we get, is it reasonable or not reasonable? Is it realistic to implement a system like a minimum response within 3 days or with a week or something like that?
For complaints,
A response, not necessarily we will enforce it, but we will look at that by a date certain. So at least the person complaining knows that it's been seen and is in the queue. Because it sounds like, I think that's what Marine's asking, and that would help bring some faith into the system.
I consider that would be a good idea and a good way to go, but he's already telling us he's 2 weeks behind or more on the budget, and I don't want to be pushing all the budget meetings all out into June, and then the second one or whatever, and for the budget committee and then for us, so. And I also, I look at under code enforcement here and, we're 67% of the year and we're 64% of budget, so.
Yeah, but that's
basically-
application
I
to
know,
Jeremy's
I
time,
understand that, it's his time that he wants it to.
but it's a formula, it's not hours worked. It's a percentage that's decided at the start of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's not correct.
You do a time card?
Yes.
And so he's pretty, and if you look at that for the amount of money, that's, somewhere around 2 hours a week is what's allocated, so, need to boost that, I don't know, but, I do see it as a problem, and I do agree with you there, but, I don't see a line item for abatement if we wanted to go in there and clear it out, and, I just don't, and. Until the owner, and the owner's the final person, you have the renters in there, I take it they're renters in there, and they're not gonna move until the owner says move, get this done, and, and that was my thought about it, because then you take them to court and you have court, what, quarterly?
Correct.
Or, so you file a citation, they go in there and, they ask for an extension, so it's another quarter, so you could be 3, 6, 9 months, into this thing with nothing happening per se before the, and that's not the direction we want to necessarily go, and we can't afford to clean it up ourselves, so. It's good to identify it, but how do we move forward on it once? And you would know more so than I best way to go forward, what we can do, and also I know that you're trapped between this water treatment and budget and everything else that's going on. You and all these developments that want to come in, you have to look at their plans and stuff like that, so you've heard us, what do you see on your part?
Is the council interested in hearing my thoughts?
Yes.
Okay, great. I agree that there are some code enforcement issues in this community that need to be addressed. And I'll take responsibility for not addressing them perhaps sooner than they should have been. I believe an approach that can fit within our constraints, and I believe it would be a compromise approach, would be to take one issue at a time, see it all the way through the process, and then move on to the next issue. There's a lot to abating a code enforcement issue. You can send a letter all you want. If somebody doesn't get it, if they don't respond, there's a lot of follow-up involved. And I believe if we can pick one and make some momentum on it, maybe get some experience dealing with it, get some success, move on to the other one, show some progress. I just fear if we try to do so much all at once, it's going to be overwhelming and undoable and just lead to more frustration. So I have identified one property that I believe is one of the worst allegedly offenders in the city. Would like to have the opportunity to show that I can make some progress on that. And I've already got the ball rolling on it.
Goes back to my question though, how do we do it for the next time? Because this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the budget meeting that you and I had.
Well, we're setting expectations right here and right now.
That's why I'm bringing it up, is I don't think we talked about that as a group here, how we're gonna get one started. What if another one turned up, this one cleans up and another one turns up? What do we do?
Again, I believe setting a goal of one code project at a time is reasonable. I believe that's something that can be done.
So and then when we finish that, we can identify the next one?
Certainly,
Okay,
So if it takes 9 months to get. If a property has 5 infractions. All 5 have to get done in order to consider it closed. So the infractions, because of the way our process runs, we have to really put everything on there, some of which aren't health and safety, they're nuisance. They're, you know, just something you wouldn't want to live next to, but it's not open garbage. So we're not gonna go to the next open garbage one because we've got an unlicensed vehicle that needs to be towed away. That's my fear.
I'm not sure I understand. Can you say it again?
In order to close our top one that we might be working on, it may have several properties needing abatement, usually have more than one issue. So, but not all of those, say it's 5. Not all 5 issues are gonna be egregious. One might be, there's an unlicensed vehicle. And that may take a lot more time because that's for whatever reason, but we may have a property where somebody moves in and there's 50 bags of garbage in their front yard, and we can't move on to that one because we're still trying to work on this unlicensed vehicle to get moved, so we can close that out and then start on the next one. That's what I don't care for about this particular proposal, that it has to be wrapped up, tidy and done while we've got garbage accumulating on another property that's a health and safety issue.
I believe that,
I don't have an answer, I'm just saying we're gonna be right back where we are.
I believe the point that I'm trying to emphasize is limiting our work in progress. And as there's slack, you make a good point, as we're waiting for court dates and the like, and we have some slack that might, in our workflow, that might give us the opportunity again to look at something else. I don't have a perfect formula for that either.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about, health and safety versus just nuisance stuff. I could give a rip if there's some blackberry bushes over the sidewalk.
well, could we say that we take care of the egregious stuff, and once that's in process or moving forward, yeah, we have the nuisances to finish on that property, but then could we look at the next one for the egregious stuff? Maybe kind of balance it that way.
And again, I'm a process person, but I think common sense has to prevail in some of these cases till we get a handle on the most egregious health and safety issues in this too.
I mean,
Well, some of these may be, resolved with a letter, a notice, a door hanger or whatever, telling somebody, because what you say, you drove around and saw, but when I first, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever, I drove around and there was like 10 locations that were worse than the rest. And I mean, they really stuck out, and, some of those still exist, you know, and, they're not, they're trashy looking, you know, I can't say that there's a code that they're breaking or anything else, but just, like you say, you wouldn't want them as a neighbor, but,
But I'm not talking about those kind of properties.
but, still like I say, when some of the others come up, and I'm sure if you got a dog type issue, you'd send a letter out to somebody, it wouldn't have to go, you can still stay focused on the big one, but as other ones show up, I'm sure you would act on those.
well, either that or start with go after the garbage on all of them first, just start there. And, you know, pick the priorities of each one of those places. And if it's the garbage, then start with the garbage, so that we can get the garbage picked up and out. It's probably messy, no matter what we do, but if we're anxious to get, you know, those properties if that's the main focus and main concern of health and safety, then we don't worry about the nuisance stuff to start with. We worry about the egregious stuff and get that cleaned up.
I don't think we'd have to cite everything on the property in order to get something rolling. I didn't see anything in the language that would say that.
I mean, we can go back and, you know, do the other stuff, but start with the really, really serious issues.
Yes,
I don't, kind of separate from this conversation, but connected to it, because I don't want to diminish anything that's getting said. When we set the goals, we had a long, honest conversation about how we were worried that Jeremy did not have time in his day for the goals we were giving him. So I would just remind us that I don't know where Jeremy's going to carve the time out for this. And if anything, more things have been added to his plate this year than what we ambitiously set him. So like, I don't want us to come up with some grand idea tonight and not follow it up with telling Jeremy specifically, this is what we don't want you to do. Because there's only so much time in the day. So I just want to make sure we're all remembering that. We're a very small city. And I was trying to see if there's other cities doing other more creative things, but I'm not finding anything. It's all code enforcement officer, which we don't have. So I'm just worried. I don't know how we're going to make this happen.
Well, and I think there are some things, but this isn't the appropriate forum to do that. And so I do have some, this is not the appropriate forum.
I agree, we're not gonna come up with a solution to this ultimate tonight, we're not gonna make a magic process with silver bullet that's gonna resolve this issue. I'm pretty satisfied with Jeremy's statement, he's making progress on some issues in the city at the moment. I think we should revisit this in a few weeks and ask Jeremy for update, or next city council meeting, ask Jeremy for updates, because that will pass that 14-day window. And see where we're at, and then I think we probably made it pretty clear to Jeremy tonight that we would like a little more attention focused on egregious issues involving life, health, and safety in the city. And probably do us all good, maybe, you know, as city council people, to evaluate options or you know, changes or different priorities that we might bring back and kind of try to firm this up a little bit more. You know, as time goes on, this isn't going to be a fast resolution one way or the other. But I think having an awareness that we have an issue we want to deal with is important. And I think that's we're there.
One of the things you had mentioned was about, you know, a resource list.
I think that,
And I have a resource list about where people can take the things that they need to get rid of. Again, I don't want it to just be punitive. I just want the garbage can.
Yeah.
I'll help.
yeah, so Maureen and I talked a little bit about how, you know, we could benefit the citizens to offer them, you know, where they can take a TV that will accept a TV, you know, the cost to take a mattress to the dump. Who might possibly take away scrap metal. I would say re-notification of the city cleanup day that we have, you know. You know, let people get it on their calendar way ahead of time if we haven't, you know, done that before, and try to help people out, because I would say generally that a lot of people that end up in this situation, there's resource issues that affect why there might be a you know, an accumulation of garbage or metal or something that gets into this state, and then they get overwhelmed. And so I'm with Maureen. I don't want this to be punitive. I want it to be something to where we help people help themselves. And so I appreciate you gathering that up. I think that's a good step for some people. You're probably always going to find some people that aren't, it's not going to make any difference for it, but at that point, we at least, you know, we can walk away knowing that we did offer them some help in finding solutions for their problems.
All right, enough said. I'm satisfied with the discussion. I think we need to move on to the business. I just felt the need.
I think it's important.
I I think that, it was correct,
Yeah,
so.
Next up is, resolution 828, resolution adopting a designated camping area. Mr. Carter.
This resolution does just that. Now that the new camping ordinance is in effect, the designated camping area is identified as the outside perimeter of the city hall campus as designated on attachment 8.
Questions for Mr. Cottle?
Make a motion to approve resolution 828, a resolution adopting the designated camp area in accordance with ordinance 312.
Second.
By Tim, second by Jimmy. We have a motion to approve resolution 828. We have further discussions, questions about it. All those in favor of motion to approve resolution 828, resolution adopting a designated camping area in accordance with the ordinance 312, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next up is 155. On the list of things. Talk about a master integrator. Mr. Cottle.
To comply with ORS 279C, TAG must provide performance and payment bonds to the city for the DLC project, and they must comply with prevailing wage regulations. This amendment to the agreement clarifies these processes. It's anticipated that TAG will pass the cost of the bonds to the city.
Questions? Motion.
make a motion to approve amendment number 1 to the master integrator of record agreement with the automation group and to authorize the city administrator to sign.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by. A motion to approve amendment number 1 to master integrator of record agreement. Okay. Anything else to add? Questions on this one? Okay. Not hearing, not seeing. All those in favor of motion to approve amendment number 1 to the master integrator of record agreement with the automation group and to authorize the city administrator to sign, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That brings us to the end of that. We're up to other business. I think we have a presenter.
I'd like to present, go ahead, we're trying to get started, so let him close up the, somebody on social media, unfortunately, I don't remember their name, I wish I did, I think Gail read it too, maybe you remember their name. Made a suggestion that, we, give a tribute to Hall of Reagan and, name the shade tree donation program in some manner, shape, or form. I'd like to see like a plaque or something. I think that'd be really cool. You know, it's Paul Fisher Park. Paul Fisher did a lot for the park, and you know, a lot of times we see people changing names. You've got Research Stadium instead of whatever it was before. I always think that's kind of a tough move to push somebody out because they're not in the current times and to kind of move them on. But I do think it would be a notable way to annotate Hall's dedication to the city and to the parks, and really to that program in particular in recent times. And so probably not, you know, I don't know how, you know, probably need to do some more looking into it, but I just wanted to broach that. I told the person I would bring that up at the city council meeting. So just as a, you know, mention for the time being, and maybe something more going forward later with that. So.
I believe there's a line item in the budget for city council funding or something of that nature, so maybe take it out of that. I don't know, or whether Parks has money for it, I don't know. So anyway, sounds like a good idea. Like I say, next up, we have Tony Morrissey, Parks and Rec Committee swing set fundraiser.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know that our budget is tight. And, but we've needed a swing set for a couple of years now. So I proposed a letter that would be mailed out or sent out to all the kids in their packets that go home and try and raise money so we can get a swing set. I met with Jeremy and there's a CVC program, well, they would provide it for 40% of the cost. So I have a proposal of a goal of $8,000. And which is, if we meet that, the CVC will cover 3,500. And I have a list of play sets, swing sets, prices and everything. Because the budget meeting is until July. I was hoping to see swing sets up by July. And so I'm taking this on. And I've talked to a few of the teachers at schools and everything, and they appreciated what was going on. And they said they would have no problem passing the letters on. And we discussed this at our last meeting at Parks and Recs, and everyone agreed with it, so we passed it. Parks and Rec has passed it on. So now my next thing is to pass it through this committee, and then I will process this and pass it off to the 3 schools in Lowell and post them all around and see if we can raise up money to get a swing set at Fisher Park.
Questions?
Have you had a chance to look at the estimates in there? Because I know you've bought playgrounds before. What do you think the total, has he seen this?
I don't know if I've seen the estimates yet.
Yeah, it was,
Can you, because I don't know what swing sets go before, but can you? There's a grant that's gonna due pretty soon that we've been encouraged to apply for from this community, and so I just wonder what you think the whole total would be, a reasonable total.
Yeah, for this model of swing set, this looks about right.
You're talking about 8 to 10 grand.
that one there is, we had one price at 8, that one tops out at 5. But Mike figured, I mean, if we had to do something with the ground, you know, new wood chips and all of that.
But
Yeah.
for 10 grand, you could get it, probably.
I think so.
Okay. Let me see what this other thing, and I'll get back to you.
So my thought is just to, once, you know, get it out there and see what kind of feedback we get. And try and get a swing set in the park. And so,
My thought on that is, it'd be good to pick out one that you wanna have and maybe put it in the monthly water bill flyer for donations and stuff like that instead of schools, because.
well, that's why this is my comment.
I know, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, is we do it as a mailer with, and, you know, a place where they can mail a check back to, or
Yeah.
they can do it, whatever, so that it hits a bigger, you know, the kids will be all for it, but they don't write checks, you know.
Well, but
Yeah.
it can go home with the kids, it can go in the water
In the
bill,
school, yeah,
and it can be put in
Yeah,
the
okay,
grid.
no, I'm not saying that
That
not to
way,
do that, other,
we fit it
but
all.
decide on which one you want, yeah, decide on which one you want, decide on how much money we need. It's, you don't leave it, but that's my thought, okay?
well, my goal was $8,000.
And then with the additional money, that'll be 11,500.
Yeah, well, you know, if we raise more, then we can get more.
What was, Tony, what was the additional amount you were talking about?
You know, and
The
for
match?
doing the ground and, new wood chips.
No, you said somebody was gonna kick in some money. Who was that?
Oh, the CDC, was that,
The CDC?
I can't remember where, I got it written down there. The one where we talked about,
CDBG.
SDC, I'm sorry,
Oh, that's.
Oh, but that's a
Or the
related. It's not.
yeah,
Oh, I remember now.
Yeah.
We went,
yeah, I have the picture right here.
so to fill everybody in, Tony and I went through the Parks Master Plan. And we also went through the Parks SDC update we did around this time last year. We looked at the project list, and I believe that swing set. I believe the swing set would be, it would be an eligible project. But it won't pay for the entire thing, only the future users part, and there's a 30% current users, 70% future users. So what Tony's proposing is to fundraise for the difference.
Mhm.
I was a little surprised about CDC.
Yeah,
but, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a It's about the next COVID. You're excited, we're excited.
Wow.
There's a lot of people up on the East Hill who have no kids in school.
Right.
That's old fogies. We might donate if we knew about it.
Yeah. There's reasons
You
they
don't
don't.
have kids in school, you don't know about it once it comes to
You got a water bill,
sewer,
right?
water and sewer bill.
well, that's why we,
Yeah,
that's just a
Get-
no brainer.
get everything
Put
we
it in
can.
every way to advertise that we
yeah,
can. Every
and
way.
I can have it at the store,
Yeah.
pass them out, like crazy.
Pick out a set, get them a set dollar or something like that, so people, they know what the goal is.
Yeah, that's why I have
Yeah,
it
that's,
like this,
yeah.
and then,
That's why I
I
mean,
might even give it all.
yeah,
Okay.
you're good for a dollar.
Crack open that wallet there, Bob.
I used to call it.
Yeah,
But no, I get it.
You get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't get it. Oh, yeah.
But I just thought it had, I just thought it had it.
I don't get a bill. I think the auto debit, I don't get a bill, so I don't get the newsletters.
No, I get it, but I think what.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
So,
I think the paper bill and I pay.
yeah, I think my address is wrong somewhere, which, you know, somewhere wrong.
okay, all right, very good.
Tony?
So can I proceed with your blessings?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, good, good.
Get a good one.
Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah.
Thanks
Get
for what
it-
you're doing.
Get all you can get.
Thank you.
Good end of the meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, good to hear. In case I forgot. Anybody else on the council, anything? Okay, we're adjourned at 8:21.
Yeah.